Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our virtual opening reception for our 3 newest exhibitions. I am Shelley Rugg, the gallery coordinator at Gallery Route 1. For our presentation today, we ask that you please stay muted unless we invite you to unmute. For best viewing, select speaker view from the top right corner of the viewing screen. We want you to know that we are recording today's presentation for future viewing on our website and YouTube channel. Now, please join me in welcoming Z. Morvitz. She is a mixed media artist, a founding member of Gallery Route 1, and currently the director of the project space for visiting artists.
Hi, and welcome to the project space. As Shelley just told you, this is the place where visiting artists exhibit. And we choose artists whose work addresses themes that are in the public debate now, such as the environment, social justice, and immigration. And this particular show, Searching for Home, is about immigration. But before I introduce the artists in this show, I'd like to acknowledge that we are standing on the ground that is Coast Miwok land, and that they were here thousands of years before we got here. Our first artist that we're gonna hear from is Kristen, Lindseth. She is a sculptor, a printmaker, and educator. She lives in the East Bay and got her degree at San Jose State and also studied in Paris. She is a sculptor in bronze and mixed media, and she has done her own bronze casting. Kristen, tell us about your work.
Hey, thank you, Z. My work is focused on primarily on inner human experience, and I work in the 2 media that I work in, bronze and wood, are both materials from my ancestral past. Bronze was, the Vikings were noted for their fine metalwork with elaborate intertwined animals and plant motifs. And so it just kind of happened that it came out because I studied painting at first and was just drawn to working in metal. And so the bronze comes from my ancestral past, the work that I studied in college and art history classes. And also the wood that I use comes from the ancestral land. My family came from Norway and Sweden. My dad from Norway, my mom from Sweden. And the farm that they came from in Norway was named Lindseth. Farms are named after the families. And lind comes from linden trees, which grew on the land. And they're the source of basswood, which I use for my wood sculpture. And Seth means place. So it's a place of the lindens. And my family lived there for 500 years until, and this I have a multicultural family in terms of my children there and my husband, who's Japanese Mexican, but I chose to focus on the immigration experience of my father, who died in 2020 from COVID. So this is for him. And this sculpture that you're looking at is called Embarkation, and it has a hopeful upward arc of people all over the world who are seeking a better life. We don't leave home unless we have to. There's a quote from Warwickshire, which is that no one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. And so home means so much. And this show title, Searching for Home, is so poignant. It means so much. It means our attachment to the land, our attachment to our culture and the traditions, our families, our community. And so when we're away from home for whatever reason, whether refugees or immigrants or just struggling raising our kids on our own, we have this longing. So it's a shared experience to long for home. You can go to the next sculpture. Thank you, Jenny. This one is called Into the Unknown. And it's really a metaphor. Both of these are a metaphor for heading out into the unknown in life, which we all do at different times in our lives. There's so many things that happen in our lives that cast us out into kind of darkness in the unknown. And they include things like illness, serious illness, divorce, many things. And we all encounter this. And so it's really for that too. And I was thinking about my father, who was diagnosed with dementia, and how he was heading. I made this thinking about him heading out into the unknown. And yes, you can go to the next. And then and I really have been thinking about refugees and immigrants for the past 11 years, and making my work focused on their experience, because I have a strong empathy, having had a lot of housing insecurity most of my adult life. And this one's called Caught in Limbo, because when people have to leave their homes due to violent conflict or climate change, or just insufficient resources, they get caught in limbo. They get stuck in camps, they get stuck at borders. And so that's a long period for many people. So this one represents that. And so my family left Norway in 1901. What happened is Norway was still a poor country at the turn of the century. And there was a sudden doubling of the population at that time. So there was a shortage of food and arable land. And my great-grandparents, with their 6 children, they had lost 2 already, left Norway to go to the United States. They arrived they took a ship named the Simric, which was built in Ireland, and they arrived at Ellis Island. And these all have lights. If you come to the gallery, you'll see inside. The furniture is all handmade. I don't know that you can see in right now, but the furniture is all rustic, kind of mountain cabin furniture. And as are the houses, very rustic. Some of them have sound, and they all have light. And the family arrived at Ellis Island, and they lived like most families, immigrant families, many had borrowed housing for 10 years. So there were lots of hardships. You can go to the next one. During that time, borrowed housing for 10 years, and they finally started to build a house. And then, I think the iPad might have gone off with it. And then they had things like fires. There was a fire. You see that represented here. All kinds of hardships happened to people who are on the move. And they had a barn burned down, blow down by the wind, because this was North Dakota, the flat plains. So it took a lot of time to get started. And they worked multiple jobs, like a lot of us do when we're starting out. My grandfather had the farm chores, but he did the postal route before he started the farm chores. So he got up at 4, and in the winter, where it's sometimes 60 below zero, he put hot bricks in the front of his coach, and it was drawn by horses, and the horses knew the way to go, and stopped right in front of each mailbox, even when there was a whiteout and he couldn't see where he was going. So they worked very hard, and there were early strokes. My grandmother at 39, they lost another child. Life is, I thought my family didn't have any hardships, because I met them when they had a farm and horses, and I went out as a kid and thought this was fantastic. It was like paradise. But I think looking into the past is so valuable for all of us, because what we realize is how much we share with people from all over the world. We have that knowledge, but we just learn more and more. The more we learn. So they eventually prospered. They helped people during the Depression. They were growing food, so they were able to feed. And this represents that prosperity. So, and if the lights were on, you could see the front. There's a light, and inside in the middle of the house, there's a tree. The tie to the land that we feel in our DNA that pulls at us. I've felt it all my life. This pull towards mountains and trees, redwoods and pines, and inside you see the tree trunk. Thank you, Jenny, you got it. And the furniture again is all handmade, and the paintings are my paintings on the wall. They're paintings of refugees in different parts of the world, and the little rocking chairs, and just what we need. There's no excess. It's you know. Oh, she put the music on. My husband's playing slide guitar, so it's a little bit. It's okay if it's not on the whole time. It'll be distracting, but this one represents the finally home, finally being at home and arriving, and what we all hope for. So thank you. That's my story. Appreciate everybody coming to listen.
All right, thank you. At this point, we'd love to open up to the audience for any questions they might have of Kristen. Just raise your hand if you have a question. Otherwise, we will continue. All right. Okay, so Z, would you like to introduce the next artist?
Yes, our next artist is Tali Margolin, who is herself a person who has been seeking home, and her work addresses that search. She's a visual artist working in acrylic, oil, and mixed media. And her works, and she uses non-traditional materials, as you will see. She brings a wide range of associative and emotional and psychological moods to her work. She has a BFA from the School of Visual Arts in New York and an MA from the Lehman College in New York. Tali, you're on.
Thank you, Dee, for introducing me. The idea of Far From Home project is, it really resonates with me, and it has much relevance to my life. I'm not sure how many times I was an immigrant, and I don't know to answer a simple question, where are you from?
You're good, go ahead.
Okay, so where should I start from?
You've been an immigrant many times.
Yeah, and I don't know how to answer the question, where are you from? I was born in the USSR, and it doesn't exist anymore. Now it's Ukraine, and actually today it's still a conflict zone between Ukraine and Russia. And when I was 17, I moved alone to Israel. From Israel, I moved to New York, and last years I spent between Israel and New York. So this far from home, I can really relate and understand this. These changes of countries and continents shaped me as a person, and they definitely shaped and influenced my art. I found inspiration in movement and travel, and I started to use packing materials in my works, like foam, brown paper, and different kinds of ropes and threads. In this mixed media works, I deal with the theme of home and memory and immigration, the loss of the familiar and adjustment to new conditions. The concept of home continues to lead the search for identity and connection to a place. I would like to give you a few basic points about this work. Most of them are 5 by 4, 6 by 4 feet. And sometimes they even get larger. I cover them with acrylic gel medium for decay resistance. All the lines were made with yarn and thread on brown paper. I work directly on the paper, so the brownish color that you see is the color of the paper. When you stand in front of them, you can see a lot of ribs, knot, and movement element. I would say over the time, they grow to include many elements that have meaning for me. Like packing materials represent moving to the different places, and yarn and thread represent connection. They have a knot, which is represent remembering, and also connection to a place, and ribbed areas. This represent time, like aging, and memories, like missing pieces in our memories. The houses have roofs, but never roots. They never have steady foundation. Kind of a house on wheels, temporary and detached with a feeling of displacement. I started to work with these materials partially also because of limitations like working space, transportation, storage, but it turns out that it brought to me liberation, and working with these materials, I didn't feel pressure. I could create and not to worry about result, just thinking about what's coming next. And I learned to rip, and I learned to let go. And my paintings have many layers of different materials painted over with acrylic paint, but metaphorically, these layers represent my personal layered world, where different places and cultures are connected to each other. And that's pretty much it, and I hope this helps you to better understand my work.
Thank you, Tali. Again, if anyone would like to ask any questions, now's the time for that. You can just raise your hand. Okay, and if not, we will move along to our next exhibition. All right. So next, in the center gallery, we will be looking at the work of our artist fellow named Shannon O'Neill Creighton. Please welcome Shannon.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm gonna just read a little bit of the project statement. The show is called Queer Belonging. And each portrait, which you'll see here in a minute, is connected to an interview as well. And so we'll play a short excerpt of an audio clip, and then we'll take a look at the different portraits. So I'm gonna just read a little bit from the project statement. 3 rivers, 3 forests, 3 parks, 2 rocks, a lake, an ocean, a ridgeline, a cabin, a bookstore, and a basketball court. Sites of belonging. Queer Belonging shares the stories and portraits of 24 LGBTQIA+ individuals from California and the Southeast, Kentucky, Tennessee, and North Carolina, photographed within places of personal significance. The choice of location between California and the Southeast explores how these regions exist as imaginary polarized symbols of freedom and oppression, while aiming to also disrupt and complicate these stereotypes that are projected onto these regions. These stories reveal that while certain cultural truths hold up, discrimination and marginalization is not fixed in time or place. Simultaneously, pride, celebration, and kindness are not bound by geopolitical lines. So each portrait, each 24 portraits, this is the first one in the series, the subject in the portrait chose the place where they were photographed as a location of belonging and connection for them. And as Jenny Lynn takes us through the gallery, you can see the different images, not only the portraits, but then also environmental images of the space itself. This portrait is of Bailey, taken in Copperfield's bookstore in Petaluma. Bailey is 16 years old. Great. And this next portrait is of my dear friend Cole. And we're going to listen to an audio clip from Cole's interview that was taken in Redwood Regional Park in Oakland, California. Shelley, if you would be willing to start the audio clip now, that would be perfect. And as you listen, we'll just continue to walk around the gallery at the rest of the portraits.
Could you share a little bit about your identity?
Like how I identify?
Yeah, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, I identify as a trans masculine person, as a queer person.
Yeah. And with those identities, I feel like queer can mean a lot of different things to different people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to say what it means to you?
Yeah, I think that I think queer for me is like a path that one walks, or that I walk, in that, like, being let's see how to frame it. Yeah, I think it encompasses everything, like the way one moves through the world, politically and economically, and
Yeah, it's a. I love that you described it as a path.
yeah, like an awareness around, all other people in struggle. Because I think with queerness and with transness, like, there's an inherent struggle of, like, not fitting into, the standards of society, Yeah, who's kind of in the struggle with you, whether it's in this, different ways, but that, there's so many other, like, minorities basically that are in the struggle.
Yeah.
And that it's almost like our responsibility also. I've been dealing with a lot of responsibility stuff in my life. Like, there's been a lot of, like, that, like, I feel like I have a responsibility to stand up for others who, who don't fit into, like, white America, like, supremacist culture.
Yeah.
That you don't just follow. You're not like, you're not just like a sheep following kind of the herd.
Yeah.
And that queerness is, like, really trying to break free from, a lot of heteronormative ways in which one lives life,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, breaking free, I think.
Yeah.
And so in that, I think there's a lot of struggle.
Yeah.
And so it brings an awareness of all the struggle around you, like, who else is struggling in what other ways,
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is like suffering, It's like,
It's a powerful wonderful connecting force. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was just one audio clip. Every portrait is connected to an interview and is accessed in the gallery through a QR code. So in coming to the gallery, viewers are invited to borrow some headphones and spend some time listening to the voices of each of the subjects that are photographed. And of the 24 people, these are all extended community. They're friends, they're mothers, daughters, cousins, old, long-time colleagues. Some have worked together for decades doing important work within the queer community. And yeah, there's community members through education, lovers. It's really an incredible web of connected individuals. And it's really, this has been 100% a project that would not be possible without the community, without every single one of these people and the vulnerability that they brought to the project. So I've been deeply honored to witness everyone's stories and feel just so filled up by the way their stories are now filling this space and are here for anyone to listen to. So there's just a few more portraits as Jenny Lynn is going around the room. Maybe we should take questions, as I don't know if that feels like a good time to switch gears, or if anyone has any questions or comments.
Mary, did you have a question?
I just want to say I was so moved. I was moved to tears watching what Shannon just shared. It was so beautiful. So I don't really have a question, just yeah, heartfelt thank you.
Well, that's perfectly acceptable. Thank you. Yes, Fawn.
I have a question. What came first? Did you interview first and then take the portraits? Or how did you come to decide to include the voices with the images?
That's a great question. My background is in interdisciplinary art, so I really, I love combining image with other forms, so writing or audio recordings.
Just a sec. Oh, there you go. Sorry. Go ahead.
Was I muted?
No, you just weren't on camera, but you are now.
Gotcha. Okay. I knew that when I started on this project that the images wouldn't be enough. And I also really wanted to create an experience that was immersive. And so when you listen to the audio, you're not only listening to the voice of the project participant and my own voice, but you're also listening to the sounds of the environment. So birds and basketballs in the background, or a lot of them were taken by water, so you can hear water in the background. And so for me, they were really connected from the beginning. Yeah, I was always kind of a part of a bigger vision for the project. So thank you, Fawn, for that wonderful question. I'm really glad to see you here. Any other questions or comments?
All right, it looks like pretty quiet out there. Everyone's feeling satisfied with your beautiful work.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move on to our next exhibition. And this is work by one of our artist members, Austin Buckingham. So please welcome Austin.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us at Gallery Group 1. My name is Austin Buckingham. I am presenting 4 photographs, each printed on silk crepe georgette. The exhibition is called Amor Fati Silks. I am standing in front of one of the silk panels, an image of my mother before I was born. A young woman with her white dress beautifully fanned out on the grass. In 1954, she was 17 years old. The fullness of her potential as a woman was yet to be realized. Her life would be shaped by World War II, the status of women at the time, and the circumstances of her birth, upbringing, and education. She was one of many who literally gave birth to the baby boomer generation, which includes myself and sisters. Inside this room are 3 more images, equally fresh, hopeful, and innocent of life's sorrows. When I look at these young lives, I imagine the future of their joy, contentment, and the fullness of life, because that is their destiny and their birthright. 67 years have passed between 1954 and today. Life has been lived. There has been fear, sorrow, death, and violence, and not enough joy, not enough contentment or potential realized. I have a cognitive dissonance that I cannot reconcile, and I wonder, how did we get here? How do we become who we are? Amor Fati means to love our fate, and moreover, to go beyond that, to fully embrace and accept what life has handed to us in all of its extremes and dimensions. I invite you into this room to walk with the memories of these silk panels, see them move as you move among them. Feel these young lives, their sorrows, their joy, and their possibilities, and experience their fate. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. That was wonderful. At this time, if anyone has any questions for Austin or any comments, now's the time for that. Pamela, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Austin. I actually could have asked the same question of Shannon, but got in a little late. If you had not, this is a terrible question, but if you had not had the photographs that you needed or that you wanted or that you've ended up with, how else might you have talked about this?
In my artist statement, the whole thing kind of got initiated because my mother, like probably many mothers, kept baby books for each of her daughters. And in my baby book, there was a letter that she wrote to me when I was a baby at 19 years old. I mean, she was 19 years old. I was a baby. And in this letter, she wrote about, her hopes and her dreams for me. And I just found it, I don't know, a little bit complicated to embrace how a 19-year-old could really understand about life, but she was informing me about life and marriage and how, I would grow into a woman. And so that, in a way, began the journey of exploring this. And let me also say that part of the exploration of this project is you can buy literally people's photographic lives on eBay. So you can buy boxes of discarded photographic lives. And I would buy these boxes and I just started to explore like what happened to them and where did they go? And what was the trajectory of their life? It just led me to this curiosity of how lives unfurl, but also how moments are frozen in a photograph. And so if I did not have these photographs, which of course I do, I may have explored the same idea with someone else's life, because I think that it's a universal story. It's not my story, it's the story of mankind.
I'm going to be a pig and say something else. There's a novel which I really think would be wonderful for you to read. And I saw Mary Eubank, I think she's read it too. It's by William Boyd, and I think it's Tender Caress. But in any event, what's so interesting about it is it's peppered with found photographs. He writes as a woman and writes very well as a woman for a man. And his lead character is a photographer. And by the time you get into about the second chapter, you fully accept the fact that these are this character's photographs, and this is her life.
Yes.
So this begs the question of you, what's next?
I don't know. I don't have an answer to that really. I've been kind of working on this and exploring this for many years. I don't know at this point if it has an end or if it continues. So I don't have an answer for that. But when I started being a photographer, I imagined myself being a travel photographer. And then somewhere along the way, I got handed a medium format camera. And medium format camera, fairly heavy. It doesn't really work for travel. And I ended up painting a room in my basement entirely black, like all the walls, all the ceiling, and I started working with these staged still life montages. And it just lends itself to doing more personal, introspective work, I think, because I spend many hours alone with myself and objects and photographs in the dark black basement room, and it just becomes a very introspective experience. So I do see myself exploring that further, but in terms of the direction, I don't have an answer for that.
Questions or comments for any of our artists? Betsy?
But I just wanted to say thank you to these four remarkable artists. I find these shows and the artwork just so compelling, so thoughtful, so deeply touching. And I just want to thank you for all the everything you did to get you to this point, and for your generosity in sharing this with all of us. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Betsy. All right, last chance, everyone. If you have something to say, now's your chance. Okay, oh, Pamela, she's got more.
Oink, oink. I missed the class of the classroom. I want to throw that same question at Shannon that I did a few minutes ago, and if she's still around. Not that I didn't like Austin's response. Are you there, Shannon?
I am. Yeah, I'm here. Maybe I'll.
Okay. Okay. When I saw you hanging your work the other day, I mentioned to you that seeing that kind of portraiture of with a certain kind of intimacy, here is more emotional intimacy, and I would say that hers is probably more physical intimacy. I think about Sally Mann, and that exploration. And there are so many photographs here and so many friends. You can't have that kind of examination, I don't think. But what's next?
What's next for me in terms of after the project? Is that the question? Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good question. I'm currently just taking an out breath of putting up this work. I would really like to bring this project to the South, to Louisville, Kentucky, which is my partner, Hannah, who is also photographed, are the two different homes that we both visit to often, are very important to us, and I would really love to bring the project there to Louisville. And that will probably happen next year. I'm in conversation with a different gallery there. So yeah, that's I guess the most immediate thing. But this has been a huge process. It's been over a year of work. And while there are many different images in the space, I do feel a sense of intimacy. Maybe it's just because I'm the photographer and the artist, but and I'm also, similar to what Austin just spoke to, all of the portraits were taken with a large format film camera. And there's it's not really an easy, quick camera to use. It takes time. You have to slow down, and it's heavy, and you don't really know what's going to come of the work until a couple weeks later. So there's something inherently in the materiality of using a large format analog process that I think creates a sense of intimacy as well. So yeah, thank you for that question, Pamela.
I think if in person, it would have a different sense of intimacy. So I want to just say that.
Yeah, I look forward to you coming and seeing it now that it's fully up. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Pamela, our board vice president, for your wonderful questions today. Thank you, everyone who's come to this program. It means a lot to Gallery Route 1 and the artists for you to be here. These exhibitions will be up through December 5th, and we hope you have been inspired to visit the gallery and see the work in person. Gallery hours are Thursday through Monday, 11 to 5. And thank you to Jenny Lynn for being our videographer today. Really appreciate it. And thanks to all the artists who have mounted these wonderful exhibitions. If you were moved by today's presentation and want to support the work that Gallery Route 1 does to help people experience the world in new ways, then please visit our website and donate today. Make a note in the comments that your donation is because of our virtual reception. And thanks again for coming. And we hope to see you at our next virtual reception, which will happen on December 11th. Thanks again for coming, everyone.